Hello, and welcome to the Joy of Cooking podcast. Each week, we set the table for a discussion about recipes and stories from the authors of The Joy of Cooking, kitchen victories, and misadventures, and most importantly, what we are cooking and eating right now. We're glad you've joined us at the table today. I'm Shannon Larson, home cook, ardent Joy of Cooking user and fan, and homemade tomato soup enthusiast.
I'm Megan Scott, co-author of the 2019 edition of Joy of Cooking. I'm a food editor by day and avoider of dish duty by night, and I make a mean celery salad. Bet you didn't know that you could do that.
I'm John Becker, fourth-generation co-author and steward of The Joy of Cooking, America's oldest family-run cookbook. I cut myself with a mandolin fairly frequently.
Today, notably today.
Yeah. And it wasn't even my index finger or my thumb. It was actually my ring finger. I don't know how I did that.
It was just like hanging out, doing nothing?
I mean, yeah. It was an innocent bystander finger.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
I blame the celery root.
Oh.
That's a hard one to mandolin, I feel.
Yeah.
I need one of those chainmail gloves.
Ooh, I hate those. I don't like, they make me feel, it feels more dangerous using those somehow.
I've never used them, but it does seem like, I don't know, they seem kind of cool.
Well, you could feel like you're a knight in the kitchen or something.
Yeah, but only your hand.
Yeah.
It's just your hand that's the knight. How was your week, Shannon? What did you do?
My week was really good. It's weird. I try to think back on my week before we record this podcast, and I'm like, I don't know what I did. I worked a lot. It was a busy week for us because, yeah, it's just busy right now. We ate out more than we usually do, but we definitely had pho.
Nice. Oh, it's good pho weather.
So, well, every weather for me is good pho weather. But yeah, that was like the highlight. I mean, we made some good stuff, but honestly, takeout pho was the highlight of the week, food-wise for me. What about you?
So several episodes back, we talked about pie, and I mentioned that I was having trouble with my pie crust.
Oh, yeah.
Despite having used it many times successfully, and even having my own like baking business many years ago and using that recipe. So I know it's not the recipe's fault. Like I'm doing something that's not working. Well, this week I was determined I'm going to break the curse of the pie crust. And I did it. I made pie crust and
what did you do?
It worked. I was adding too much water. I was like over watering the pie crust, and then I think that just activates the gluten too much, and then it wants to shrink and the butter leaks out, and then it's tough.
Oh.
So I was really careful this time. I had to get my stuff together for this week is going to be Thanksgiving week. I know this podcast is going to air long after Thanksgiving, but I'm preparing for Thanksgiving because I have to make 2 pies. So I had to get my crust game together.
How many pies did you have to make to figure it out?
Well, I just made the one. I made the giant blueberry Pop-Tart that I brought to Canning Club this week was my pie crust adventure.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a big deal.
John, any highlights for you?
Yeah, I mean, like right after we recorded last weekend, made some chili for a discerning chili enthusiast.
A Texan.
Oh.
Yeah. After we recorded, I basically started from scratch. I mean, I didn't have to buy any of the ingredients for the chili powder. I had all of that, but definitely toasted the chilies, made the chili powder from scratch and all that stuff. And it turned out really good.
It was delicious.
Yeah. We served beans on the side, and I was kind of thinking I was being silly about that. And I brought it up, when our friends Brian and Marisa were over, and Brian's the Texan, and it turns out that was good planning. He was just like, I can tolerate beans and chili, and I really appreciate, especially with like a ground beef chili, but when it's Texas style, let's just say that I really appreciate that you put them in another pot.
Pandering. It's pandering.
It is.
I'm a bean person.
I love a beanie chili.
Yeah, me too.
That's my thing. I don't know what state bean chili is, but
yeah, I don't either.
But
every other state.
Yeah.
Oh, Cincinnati. The kidney beans get added to 5-way.
Yeah, so John is half from Cincinnati, so
half Cincinnatian.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's the term.
Sure. No. I have
so
no.
the beans
I have no idea.
are not integrated. They're just you can get them on top.
Yeah, same deal. It's like you can add them if you want them.
Add the beans.
Yeah, add them. Goodness. All right, so this week we would like to welcome our guest, Laurel Randolph. Laurel is actually my coworker at my day job, which is at Simply Recipes. Laurel, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. Viva beans. Viva frijoles.
Yes. Laurel, could you just quickly tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am a senior editor at Simply Recipes. I'm in charge of the recipes. But over the years, I've been a freelance writer and freelance editor. I've written for The Kitchen, Food 52, Serious Eats, Simply Recipes, The Spruce Eats, on I can't even remember, Eating Well, lots. And I've written 5 cookbooks. I think that's pretty good.
That's
We don't
pretty
need to
good.
know more about me.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Oh, straight and to the point. Really good highlights there.
Yeah. Famously, or maybe, I don't know, I think in my mind, famously, you have written a cookbook about The Simpsons, or a cookbook based on The Simpsons, and then a cookbook based on the food in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So my question is, first of all, I have a confession, which is that I've never seen a single episode of either show.
Oh man.
I know.
Megan.
I was very sheltered. Okay. I've been sheltered.
I know. I still love you.
But could you talk about?
I am embarrassed for you.
Well, no, don't overemphasize it. Laurel, can you talk a little bit about what compelled you to write cookbooks about those shows? To me, a person who has never seen an episode of either show.
Oh my God, no pressure. Sell these iconic shows and their cookbooks too.
Yeah, a quick summary.
Just
Please.
quick sell. All right. Well, I was also fairly sheltered, but I used to watch The Simpsons with the volume turned all the way down, with literally my nose touching the screen, like so my mom wouldn't hear, because we were not allowed to watch it. But I was just compelled. It's just so good as a child. So I've been a fan for a long time, and I had written a few books, and my agent and I had kind of talked about like dream things to work on. And I already had a series on Paste Magazine that was called Cooking the Simpsons that I wrote for a couple of years, where I made a dish from classic episodes each time. And then I turned it into a blog and an Instagram. And so I was like, well, that's what I'd want to do. I never thought I'd write cookbooks for like shows or properties or anything, but I just love The Simpsons so much, and there's so much food in it. Like, literally, Homer is like a vacuum. Like, he eats everything. So there's so many jokes that hinge on food. And they're often very, very detailed descriptions of the food. It's really interesting. So that was when we pursued. That one is an unofficial, because that was right after Disney bought Fox, which is wild, but Disney owns The Simpsons now. And so there's a lot of copyright limbo, but I'm really glad it is, because I had a lot more control. So I really got to choose the recipes myself and had a lot of input into the art and the design. So I'm proud of that. I think the photos in it are incredible. And then It's Always Sunny. Disney reached out to me, and I thought they were going to be like, we're suing you. But instead, they were like, well, we have all these new properties from FX. Do you think any of them would be good for a cookbook? And I sent them a short list, and It's Always Sunny was on the top because it's been running for so long. I really like the show. It's so funny. And it's set in a bar, so there's a lot of food and drinks in it. And it's like a cult classic. Like, people just really love that show. So they were like, yeah, do it. And so then I wrote one for Disney Publishing. I wrote that one after, which was also very fun, just a very different experience. But yeah, I don't know how I got on that path. It was very random for me, but I really enjoyed writing both of them. And you should watch the shows, Meg.
I know, I should. John was showing me some Simpsons clips before we
I love that. I like the Cliff Notes Simpsons.
Like the what was the one you showed?
Oh, just the Joy of Cooking Millhouse thing. But that's not even really all
Yes.
that food related.
That is my Instagram handle, though.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that's why I started there. My knowledge of food in The Simpsons it's very small. So the only thing I could think of was tobacco. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm sure that doesn't seem like a good jumping off point for a recipe.
There was
No,
like
I
a
thought
chili
about that one
episode.
for a long time, and I was like, I just don't think I can make that work. So I skipped that one. But there's donuts in there, and kind of the things that you would think of. There's a Krusty Burger in there. Even if you don't know a lot about the show, there's like kind of iconic things from the show that appear in the book.
Laurel, I have to ask, do you have a favorite Simpsons character?
Oh my God. I had to answer this on a Simpsons podcast and I like froze. I really, it's a weird answer, but I really love Mr. Burns. He's
creepy.
like the villain of the entire show, but I think he's hilarious. And I love that he's like weirdly somewhere over 100 and somehow still alive and has jelly bones and makes really old references.
I love that.
I think he makes me laugh the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shannon, did you say that there's a chili episode?
I remember. I didn't watch
Yeah.
The Simpsons a ton, but my husband is a huge fan. And yeah, isn't there like a chili cook-off episode?
There is.
Okay.
And there's a couple of chili recipes in the book, and one of them is from the chili cook-off. And I love that episode. It has Johnny Cash in
That's
it,
right. That's right.
voicing a coyote.
What? Yeah, it's like peyotes
which is
involved or
pretty
something.
great. Yeah. Because Homer eats this like really hot pepper and it makes him
That's what it is.
hallucinate. And so Johnny Cash takes him on a spiritual journey. But that aside, the chili cook-off's like a classic food episode. And I actually had a chili cook-off after the book came out with my followers on Instagram, and all these people sent me pictures of their chili, and it made me very happy.
Oh, I
I
love that.
love it. What
Yeah.
can you describe the chili recipe from the book?
Oh yeah. So in the show, it's a 5-alarm. No, that's Ned's recipe. Ned has a 5-alarm chili, and then Chief Wiggum has this like impossibly hot chili made from these crazy peppers that were grown in Mexico and blah blah blah. And it's super hot. So I tried to make a version that you could actually eat at home. It's also based on a fictional pepper, so I had to work with what I had available. So mine does have like various peppers in them, and it has some whole roasted peppers in it. If you're like a spice addict and can tolerate it, because in the show you can see the peppers floating in the chili. But other than that, it's like a classic beef chili. It's just got a roasty kick to it.
Does it have beans in it?
Yeah.
We're pro bean over here.
Got to know which team you're on.
Oh man, I said Viva Frijoles up top. I'm all bean. Not from Texas, so.
What is like the strangest but also most fun part of your job? Because I feel like sometimes like working in food, being a food editor, writing cookbooks, you just end up doing some weird things, but they're not bad weird. It's just like, I can't believe this is my job. Do you ever have moments like that?
Oh yeah. I think most of it is the shifted seasonality. We're always looking, even digital, we're still looking 3 months or so ahead, especially in recipes. So trying to get a turkey in August is always very interesting. Like, just calling everyone and then being like, no,
What are you talking
have
about?
turkeys. No one's asking us for that. And then trying to get like this specific seasonal ingredient that is not in season yet. Like trying to get figs outside of fig season is like impossible. So there's a lot of that, like calling really random grocery stores. And yeah, I remember one time I was trying to get calamansi. And it was not season and also not a common ingredient to find in the States. And I was going to Palm Springs for the weekend. And so I called a place that was like in between LA and Palm Springs, like would have taken me 2 hours to get there. But I was like, well, I'm going. And there's this, Asian grocery store that sometimes carries it. And I like called the guy and I like arranged for a pickup. It was just like, stopping with your friends on your way to Palm Springs or back from Palm Springs and be like, I just got to pick up some calamansi real quick.
Don't mind me.
Totally normal. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, the scavenger hunts, they can be, as long as you actually find what you're after, it can be pretty rewarding, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you find that one thing you really need, it is very rewarding. I think about that with you guys and your behemoth is like,
Oh, man.
you're developing so many recipes.
There was a point where I feel like I knew between that and at the time I was working at an agency. So I was always finding like having to go grocery shopping and find strange foods out of season. And at one point I just knew where everything could be found. Like I was like, oh yeah, that grocery store will have that. Oh yeah,
Well,
that
it's
little
like
market. Yeah.
It's like you tapped into the Matrix. You're like, I got this. I know where every food is in every location.
I feel like our knowledge, like post-pandemic, the lay of the land has changed, and so we are no longer plugged in, sadly, I feel.
Not as much, but yeah.
It's a muscle still. It's back there. You just got to exercise it.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to move into our tasting segment. This week, our theme for the episode is celery root, also known as celeriac, which I super don't like that word.
I have such a hard time saying that word. I just don't.
It doesn't feel right.
I'm
in
just
your
going to go with
mouth.
celery root.
Yeah, celery root's fine.
Okay.
John made celery root chips. They're deep fried, but they're very thin and very delicate.
Might be a little salty.
Those are so good.
Oh, good.
Oh my gosh.
Surface area is what I think about when I'm salting, and when something's like super thin. I do this to chicken skins. When baking chicken skins get them nice and crispy on a sheet pan, sometimes I will over-season them, but I'm glad you like them.
Is this the mandolin accident? This is what caused it?
Yep.
It was, sorry to your finger, but it was so worth it. Those are delicious. Can you tell me how you made them?
So for root vegetable chips in particular, I mean potato chips as well, I found that like a lower frying temperature of around 300 degrees is actually like ideal, because I think it was Dave Arnold, podcaster extraordinaire, who first got me thinking about it. But yeah, frying is it's actually a dehydrating step. I mean, if you think about it like that, and you're just trying to get as much water out of them as possible, then, before that, and then like kind of balance that with the amount of browning that you get. So yeah, that's for the new edition. I actually lowered the frying temperature quite a bit to like 300 degrees. I think the flavor comes through a lot better for just about any kind of root vegetable chip.
Mm-hmm.
They're fresh tasting. Like they have
Yeah.
that like satisfying, fried, crispy, bad for you taste. But then also like at the end, you can taste the celery,
Mm-hmm.
which I love.
Yeah.
Ideally, you have it right out of the fryer or keep them warm for like a brief period. But because we were traveling with them, I did throw them in a dehydrator for a little bit.
They're great.
Yeah, it's very humid here right now, so we had to just keep them crispy for a
Yeah.
couple hours. So we put them in the dehydrator.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do have that. They still have the flavor of the celery root.
Mm-hmm.
It's really pleasant. Maybe this is weird, but I was thinking they might even be good if you fried them and then tossed them with like a little bit of cinnamon sugar. Like they could almost be a sweet. The flavor of the celery root is a little bit sweet. John is looking at me like, no, absolutely not.
I could see like a little sprinkle of garam masala or something. I don't know if I would go like sweet savory with them, but to each their own.
A little curry would be good. Like curry
Yeah.
powder.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are fantastic. Love them.
Thanks, John. Thanks for making our snack.
My pleasure. My hair only smells a little bit like frying.
Now, Laurel, we're going to kind of circle back and do more of well, it's not really formal, but we're going to ask you some more questions.
All right.
I'm sorry you didn't get to taste our celery root chips.
It's funny. My husband's in the next room literally eating vegetable chips. And it feels like I'm the only one that doesn't have them.
Oh no, you should go in there and get some.
Yeah.
I will get some after this. Don't worry. But I wish I could have some of yours.
Most important question first. Do you like your bacon crispy or floppy?
Crispy.
Right answer. Correct answer.
Correct answer.
Thank you. Team Bean, Team Crispy Bacon.
On the same page.
On the same page.
Of your cookbooks, which was your favorite one that you worked on?
Oh, that's a good question. They're all very different because they're very different circumstances. Like I had more say on some. I actually food styled one of them. I hired the photographer for one. I didn't another. So they're very different experiences. But I think I probably had the most fun on the Simpsons book because part of it was like I had already developed a lot of recipes for it. So the pressure was lower. Delivering that table of contents and getting started, I felt like I had a leg up for once. And also, I'd been wanting to work on it, and I really was given a lot of freedom, and I had so much fun being in all the art meetings for that.
I bet that was really fun.
Oh my God, picking the colors and the props, and they recreated part of Marge's kitchen.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I thought if we can't, we couldn't use images from the show, so we were determined to make it look like The Simpsons come to life. And I actually think it made the book so much better rather than being stuffed with a bunch of still images. Yeah, and the art team did such an incredible job. It was a weird circumstance though because it was COVID time, so I wasn't there in person. It was a virtual shoot, and all my meetings were virtual. I wish I could have been there, but I think that's probably my favorite. But it's like picking your favorite child.
Yeah.
A little hard. What's your favorite recipe you developed out of your
Oh
600?
my God.
No pressure. No.
That was one of the most common questions on our book tour, and it is
I bet it
Oh my
was. And I bet
God.
you hated answering it. I mean,
yes.
it's hard.
Especially for Joy, it's a terrible question because it has just almost everything in it. So it's really just, well, this week I'm feeling like this, every interview we did, we said a different recipe.
Yeah, pretty much.
I like that because there's so many in there, and there's so many are like, depending on your mood and your time and the season and the meal and who you're serving it to or whatever. So you could just rotate through a long list, keep everybody guessing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I see that you worked on 3 different Instant Pot cookbooks.
I did. I had a wild ride because the only reason I really have written any cookbooks beyond at all, actually, is I submitted to an open call to write an Instant Pot cookbook. And this was before anyone knew what the Instant Pot was. I didn't know anyone who owned one.
Wow.
And I was just a food writer, but I wanted to write a book. And I got accepted somehow. I don't really know how. And I got paid pennies to write it, really. And I got no royalties on it.
No royalties.
Oh,
What?
no.
Yeah, but at the time, it was a means to an end. And honestly, it still is. I just wanted to get a book under my belt, and I wanted the experience. And no one expected the Instant Pot to be big. When I wrote it, it was not a phenomenon at all. I was like, no one's going to find this book. No one's ever going to see it.
Wow.
And now it's sold over 1 million copies. So,
That is wild.
yes, because it was the
cannot-
first book out for the Instant Pot.
Yeah.
There literally weren't any. And so everyone bought it. So it's like the worst thing and the best thing. I try not to think about it because it still sells. And honestly, to this day, like now it's outdated. I wouldn't recommend people buy my first one because it was written for the first model. And like the buttons have different names and things on them. Like it would be confusing. But they still sell it. And it got me a book agent. So it's the only reason I got to write 4 more. So it's so impossible to write a book, if you're not a known entity.
Yeah.
So I still feel thankful for it, even though I'm still angry about it. I withhold the right to also be angry, but
Yeah, of course.
Sorry I brought up a semi
no,
sore subject.
It doesn't actively make me angry anymore. I actually don't care. It's totally fine. People tell me all the time they have that book, and I'm very happy for them. I'm very glad I got to do it because I have the career I have now because of it. I definitely got jobs because of that book beyond cookbooks, and then I got to write more books, and I loved writing all of them, so I would never take it back. But it was a really unique thing where it was so many gadget cookbooks and things like that are so specific come out all the time and don't go anywhere. And so I assumed it would be the same, and then it was the opposite, and no one could have predicted that. So everybody rode the Instant Pot wave with my book. And now there's about 5,000.
Yeah, there's so
Not
many.
a year for the Instant Pot, so
I'm sure that
flooded market.
I'm sure it's insane how many books come out each year that have.
Yeah, I think it's finally tapered off, but that's why I stopped writing them. I actually got offered to write another one after my 3rd one, and I was like, I actually don't see the point. Like, I don't think it's going to sell. My 3rd one didn't sell, and I was like, I think there's just too many. Like, the market's too flooded. So what do I have to add to this conversation? And I kind of didn't have anything else to add, so I moved on to shows.
Laurel, I was wondering, what is your history with the joy of cooking? Is that a cookbook you grew up with? Is it just something that you kind of know about? Do you have a specific history with it?
Oh yeah, I mean, all the women in my family, classic Southern household, cooked, and they all had a copy of The Joy of Cooking. Various versions, various prints. Some definitely had the blue pattern cover, so they were older. I think that's the one my mom had. I was just always, they didn't own a lot of cookbooks either. I'll say that. Like
Mm-hmm.
we were not a big cookbook household. We would have like community cookbooks and mostly recipe boxes, trading recipes with women at church or friends or other family members. And then like Better Homes and Garden Cookbook and then Joy of Cooking. So I always saw it as such a seminal work. Like it was so ubiquitous. And I loved thumbing through it because as a kid, I found it like overwhelming as a child because there were pictures and there were drawings and there were so many recipes in there. But I was also like, one day I'm going to be an adult and I'm going to know how to make these things. It's the kind of cookbook you looked at as a kid and kind of dreamed about being a sophisticated, sophisticated lady owning your own copy of Joy of Cooking and cooking for all your friends. But yeah, it was one of the first books I bought when I probably was in college and actually bought a couple of cookbooks. And so I've always had a copy, various editions. I have the new one now because it has my friend's name on it and 600 new recipes. But I've always had a copy. I've always used various recipes from it. I know for many years I used the cranberry, like that's the first cranberry sauce I ever made for Thanksgiving. Because we're by Thanksgiving. I was just thinking about that yesterday. And I like memorize it. I didn't have to really look at the recipe anymore. And then I ended up with like my handle being Joy of Cooking Millhouse. It just feels so right that I'm here.
Love it.
Well, yeah, so it sounds like you grew up with the 1943 edition. Did it have like a crisscross blue pattern?
Yes, absolutely. I think it was my mom's mother's copy that she ended up with. Yeah, it was very well loved. It had like the binding was kind of.
It must have been weird flipping through that as a kid. That was one of Irma's, that was like her second to last edition. So extra quirky. And then plus, like, it might have had the rationing information in the back.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's perfect for my grandma. Russian kid.
What was the last thing you cooked or ate that knocked your socks off?
Ooh, I love this question. Can you remember what I've eaten today? Well, I went by my favorite bakery today called Proof, which is down the street from me, and it's a co-op, so it's worker owned. And it's like a French style bakery, and they don't really do bread. They do pastry and wonderful coffee. I picked up a slice of pistachio raspberry cake, and it's
Ooh.
a thin pistachio sponge with like a pistachio mousse and raspberry jam.
That sounds
There's
incredible.
I can find nothing wrong with it.
That's such a good combination.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. And I like that they're also their pistachio things taste like toasted pistachios,
Mm-hmm.
like real pistachios. So it's like you get that like warm, nutty with the sweet tart jam is like so good.
Yeah, like it's not just for the green color. It actually does taste like pistachios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. And there's no like fake flavoring in there or anything. It's just their stuff is really simple, but that's also why it's so good, I think. But yeah, I was really just neat. I love a good cake, and I hadn't had one in a long time, and today was the day.
Sometimes you just
And
need cake.
Uh-huh. Also, I feel
Yeah.
like pistachios are probably my favorite, like taste-wise.
delicious.
Taste, like
Oh
nuts.
man,
Yeah.
the nut of all nuts. I
The
think.
nut of all nuts is the pistachio nut.
Yeah, I love nuts in general. Like love almonds, love all the nuts, but pistachio takes the cake for me. Oh, good pun.
In college, I studied abroad in France, and there was this little tiny, tiny bakery near where I lived that I would every Friday I would go and get this little. It was like a kind of like a frangipane tart, but it was a pistachio frangipane, and then it had raspberries baked in the frangipane. I ate one every single Friday the whole time I was there. They were so good. I still think about that tart all the time. I think I still have a photo of it. Like I took a photo of it probably with this was like 2009. So, I think it was like pre me owning a smartphone. Yeah, cuz maybe they didn't exist. I don't know. Anyway, very bad photo, but it was a very delicious tart that I wanted to remember forever.
Do you think you could make it?
Probably. Yeah, I could probably make it.
Okay. I think you should try.
Okay.
I think we should try it on the
Oh,
podcast.
please send me one. That sounds wonderful. It's like very much the flavor of this cake. I feel it. I had when I was in Paris when I was in my 20s, I would go down to this boulangerie down the street and get one baguette, une baguette, and a pistachio chocolate croissant.
Oh.
And I think about that croissant all the time, just all the time.
Okay, what is your favorite lightning meal? So like a meal you make when you're already hungry, but you haven't started cooking yet, and you just got to get it. You just got to get it on the table.
Mm-hmm. This happens a lot. So, yeah. Probably the thing I make the most is like a stir fry because we usually have frozen rice
Mm-hmm.
in the freezer. And so I can put it in the microwave, and in the time it takes to cook, like I can usually throw most of the stir fry together. But I also end up making like Asian style omelets a lot because you can use up whatever's in your crisper and all of my fun sauces and put them with eggs. So like a Thai style omelet or a Chinese style omelet with just rice or something. I also make a dumpling salad a lot, which we talked about at work, but basically combine salad stuff like coleslaw mix or even a salad kit and like cook dumplings and just put it all together and shove it in your mouth.
That's such a great idea. We've done that. We started doing that this past summer, I think, because of the Hetty McKinnon recipe that came out in the New York Times. It's so good.
Yeah,
Highly
I feel like
recommend it.
you've mentioned it a few times.
Yeah, we've probably already talked about it like 3 times.
Oh my God. Well, this is another vote for dumpling salad.
We're
Yeah.
pro
You're not
dumpling
on board
salad
yet.
here
You
too.
should be on board
Yeah.
now.
Laurel, you mentioned it a couple times, but where can listeners follow you?
Yeah, I'm at Joy of Cooking Millhouse on Instagram. That's probably the best place. I'm not great at social media, so I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on, for the app formerly known
Whatever
as
it
Twitter.
is now. Yeah.
So Instagram is the place to find me, but you can also find me constantly on Simply Recipes. So I still write for the site, and all the recipes going up have been through my brain. So people should go to Simply Recipes and play around with those recipes because they're delicious. Also, the
you.
other content, which Meg works
Yeah,
on.
everything else too.
Also, everything on Simply Recipes.
Thank you so much, Laurel. And we're gonna continue the conversation, but we're just moving into our next segment where we answer a caller question. And so this week the question was about celery root. Dirk, could you read the text?
I have 2 celeriac bulbs, but I do not like the taste of celery. Should I hand them off to a more grateful person, or is there a magic recipe that'll make them tasty?
I want you to read all of the text now, don't
Yeah.
you, Sarah?
I mean, handing them off is probably what you should do if you don't like the taste. No,
The end. We're done.
yeah, bye. No, I mean, to address like the ick factor, I feel like just mixing them in with other root vegetables is really probably your best bet. Or, the celery plays like a supporting role in so many dishes that, just subbing them in a mirepoix, if you're doing a braise, or for stews, it's going to be like even better than big chunks of celery in like a stew. Texture is so much better.
The celery root will absorb the braising liquid a bit and taste. I mean, it might. I don't know if it will still taste like itself, but I think it will taste more like all the other things you put into the stew.
Well, you'll definitely be moderating its flavor.
Yeah, exactly.
But also like mixing it in with potato in either a gratin or mashed potato. Put some in the mashed potato. Latkes. That would be really good.
that would be good.
I think it
Yeah.
would be really good in latkes.
Also, these chips that you made are very good. I mean, like we said, you can still taste the flavor, but it's like a potato chip, so it's delicious. And if you could dip the chips in something too, if you really wanted to hide it.
I also feel like celery root has a different flavor than celery stalk. So I think opening up your mind to like, maybe you don't. I love celery, so I might not be the best person to talk about this topic. But I think that the root tastes different. It doesn't have the same, definitely doesn't have the same texture. So that is a big thing I hear from people who aren't big celery people is they don't like the texture. What my husband and I did last night, actually, we made celery root fries and some baked fish. So we had like a fish and chips night,
Nice.
but it was healthier. And like did a homemade coleslaw too. But they were so good, like just baked with paprika, and it's more potato-y than celery. So
Yeah.
I think keeping in mind that the roots of the plants don't necessarily taste like what shoots up above ground. It's going to have a more complex, maybe deeper flavor than what's seeing the sunlight. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do feel like celery root is a little bit sweet,
Yeah.
almost like the way a parsnip is sweet, but they're not even as like strong as parsnips are in flavor to me.
And they don't have the texture or the stringiness that people don't like about celery. You're not going to have that in the bulb. So
Yeah.
keeping your mind open, I think, is also important.
Yeah, and one of the things we love to do with celery root all the time is just cut it up into wedges and put it underneath a chicken as it's roasting, because then all of the schmaltz and the juices kind of seep into it. It is so good, and they get like caramelized on the bottom.
Yeah, you have to add some like quartered onion or halved shallot and maybe some garlic cloves that just unpeeled. As long as you just lift that chicken up and maybe turn them around every now and then. Delicious.
Laurel, do you have any favorite celery root uses?
First, I feel a little sorry for people that don't like the flavor of celery.
I know.
I know that a lot of people don't like celery, but my husband and I love celery and celeriac, which, by the way, sounds like a drug for
It does.
like fibromyalgia or something. But anyway, I love your tip of I like just to toss it in a roasting pan with other veggies if you don't want to focus on the celery root. Putting that under a chicken is great because then everything gets smaltzy, and who doesn't like smaltz? It's the best thing in the entire world. Or like tossing the whole thing with a vinaigrette or something like that, and it does get pretty sweet when it roasts. And I think with the other veg, I think that could convert someone maybe.
Yeah.
I definitely experimented with using it for this really crunchy and spicy slaw that we sometimes make, where, you just cut it into matchsticks, you salt it, and you let it drain for like an hour, and it softens the root, but it still remains pretty dang crunchy. You might have to rinse a little bit of the salt off if you eyeballed it. Just go by taste.
If you're John, you might have to rinse some of the salt off.
Yeah. Perhaps.
That sounds delicious.
But yeah, sesame oil, a little bit of microplaned garlic, and some chili flakes. Yeah.
Does that salad also have... No, that's the cucumber salad that has the Szechuan pepper in it.
Szechuan pepper oil would be great.
Yeah, that would be
Let's
really
add
good
that
with
to
it.
everything.
Yeah, add it.
Just add it.
It'll be good.
Yeah. I also just like the way celery root looks. I think it looks really funky.
It
and
does.
cool.
I kind of think it looks cute in
Yeah.
like the way a frog is cute. you
Yeah,
know?
like it'd be in a Miyazaki movie or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I love that. My last idea is that in the 2019 edition, we talk about how you can roast celery root whole like a potato and then treat it like a baked potato. Just serve it with butter and sour cream and chives, or like whatever you like to put on your baked potato to kind of, if you like baked potatoes, you'll probably like a baked celery root. It won't be as fluffy, but it'll be delicious.
Yeah, you're going to want to trim off some of the more tenderly parts of it and, scrub it good. But yeah, no, it's really good that way.
That sounds actually, I might make that this week.
Let us know how it goes.
Yeah, that sounds great.
John, I know you have a little historical nugget to share with us, so please do.
Celery root and Joy of Cooking go way back. No doubt about it. It was definitely in the 1931 edition. Irma, up until the 1943 edition, she had some pretty basic preparations for it. It's like, you cook it and then cut it up and maybe a little bit of kind of a pickly brine type situation. And then like in 1943, she added a ton. There's definitely like a marinade and a vinaigrette option, but I think that the most impressive thing was this, celery root ring mold salad, I think is what it's called. But yeah, it's kind of an aspic situation where you cook the celery root, you puree it, you mix it with one small can of pâté de foie gras or Braunschweiger, get that really incorporate it well. Then you heat it with chicken bouillon and bloom gelatin and egg yolks, and then you heat that until the egg is cooked. Cool it, fold in some whipped egg whites and whipped cream, and then pour it into a ring mold, and then fill the center with marinated cucumbers and we love this, quote, fish, etc., end quote.
Wait, just like fish chunks of fish?
It's a very good question that is not answered.
Not sure.
I have no idea.
Okay, this is coming out like when we do this Joy of Cooking party where we all find something random in one of like the older cookbooks. I think this might need to make an appearance.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know if I'm that brave.
It just sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's kind of like at no point as you were reading that did I have any idea what was going to come next.
Oh, I almost forgot. You surround it with tomatoes.
Oh,
course,
of course.
of
You got to
course.
garnish it.
Wait, whipped cream?
Yeah, whipped cream and whipped egg whites.
You got to lighten the texture, Shannon. You don't want it to be too dense.
I have this weird fascination with this dish now, and I kind of want to try it one day.
Well, yeah. Let's
do it.
It's a date. It's a date. Yeah, let's do it.
I think my favorite part of that is it's the fish, etc. Like fill it. Like I think you're supposed to position the vegetable, like the cucumber and the fish, inside the partially set gelatin, like suspend it in the gelatin in an artful way, so that when you unmold it, it looks cool.
In my brain, I'm just picturing like pieces of cucumber and fish heads. I don't know. It's just so bizarre, but fascinating.
Sardines.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have a topic, ingredient, or joy story to share, call our hotline at 503-395-8858. Leave us a message or send us a text. We would love to hear from you. Next week's topic comes from our caller.
I would love to hear your recommendations for straightforward but crowd-pleasing recipes for hosting, specifically main course recipes. I'm used to cooking for 2, so cooking for 6 seems daunting.
Fair. I know where you're coming from.
I felt that in my bones.
All right, what's on the agenda for this week? It's Thanksgiving week, so even though this episode will air long after Thanksgiving, we are in a Thanksgiving state of mind. So,
Yes.
what are you doing, Shannon?
We are hosting for the first time in our new house. My sister, brother-in-law, and 2 nephews are coming down, and we are doing the whole thing. So really excited. I'm more of a side dish kind of girl. The turkey is not something that excites me, but we're going to have a turkey because
You gotta do the thing.
I like delicata squash. I have a lot of squash right now, and so I'm also trying to think of new and interesting ways to cook squash. But I do like to do just a delicata salad with pomegranate seeds and goat cheese, and just kind of I like to lighten up the table a little bit. Made some homemade cranberry sauce. So looking forward to adding some brightness to the table and setting the table, which I always like doing, making it look pretty.
Do you have any centerpiece ideas?
No, I'm still kind of playing around. Usually it's just like maybe obviously lots of candles, but I haven't decided 100% yet.
You don't want to make it so elaborate that you can't see the person across from you.
Right.
Well, maybe you do. I don't know. I don't know your
Depends on who's sitting across from
family.
me. No, they're cool. I want to see their faces. What about you two?
We are crashing somebody else's Thanksgiving table this year. We were enlisted to help with a few things. I wasn't expecting us to do too much, but we're doing 2 pies.
Yeah, I'm going to make 2 pies. I'm going to do a sweet potato pie. I'm team sweet potato. I like pumpkin too, but sweet potato is what my great-grandmother used to make all the time, and I have just sentimental feelings about it, and I love a sweet potato. And then I'm going to make a cranberry chess pie, unless I change my mind between now and Wednesday, which I can, yeah.
Yeah, and then rolls. We were thinking yeast rolls, but I remember I had really good luck with this milk bread recipe. I haven't baked it in a few years, so TBD. And then for some reason, my aunt is dropping off 2 turkey breasts for me to smoke. For some reason. Well, I say some reason because there's like a whole turkey that's going to be there. So yeah, it's like additional breast for some reason. There's not like a ton of people, but we'll see. It's an adventure.
Laurel, what are you up to this week?
Before I tell you, I really want to know more about the pies. Okay, so the sweet potato pie, what's the crusts and is there a topping?
I will probably just do my usual all butter pastry crust because it's nice and flaky. And then usually when I make a pumpkin or sweet potato pie, I kind of treat it more like a chess pie in that it's like slightly less heavy on the sweet potato and there's cream and other things like that. So it makes it a little bit of a lighter flavor, but the texture is super, super creamy and delicious. So that's why I like to do that.
I love that. That sounds so good.
And probably just make some tasty whipped cream. I might flavor it with, I don't know, spices or something, or just leave it plain, or bourbon.
You should do an Italian meringue this time. torch it.
No, I'm not doing that.
There's enough going on.
Yeah.
It's true.
That's lovely. We're going to a Friendsgiving. We always stay in town, so we eat with all the orphans. And I'm in charge of turkey this year and gravy. And I always volunteer to make cranberry sauce because I make like 3 times the amount and keep most of it for myself to eat with yogurt the next week because I'm obsessed with cranberry sauce. And I'm making a pie. I'm going to make I use the curd recipe from the New York Times for the cranberry curd tart. Which is the most beautiful color in the world. And then I do a ginger snap crust that has extra spices in it. And I'm going to do a Grand Marnier whipped cream.
Ooh, that sounds so good.
This sounds like my dream pie. That every single bit of that sounds amazing.
I'm excited. I'm basically making the pie I want to eat.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you got to do. You got to take control of Thanksgiving and make what you want.
Huh?
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Joy of Cooking podcast. Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. Follow us on Instagram at The Joy of Cooking. Stay tuned for next week where we will tackle crowd-pleasing main dish recipes. Call in with questions, hopes, history, or where you find joy in the kitchen. Our number is 503-395-8858. That's 503-395-8858.
And we could not do this without our fantastic team at the Joy of Creation production house. Thank you to Kayleen Beach, our production coordinator, Haley Bowers, our audio engineer, and Sarah Marshall, our producer, and our guest producer, Dirk Marshall.